Hello, Ajay. Welcome to our Bold Conscious Connections podcast. So delighted that you could make the time. You're sitting all the way in India. It's late there. But thank you for making the time for us. All right.
Yeah, thank you for asking me to join y'all. It's my privilege. And I look forward to spending the next whatever minutes, hours, days it takes to be with you guys.
Well, we're delighted because just to let people know, our listeners know, Ajay is a friend of 20 plus years. We met in Mumbai, India, back when I started to play golf. You were already a good golfer. And I think it was one of those instant connections with someone you feel like you've known, from ages before. And I always, I just since then and ever cherish your friendship. And I know you're very spiritual as a human being, and I know you know your family of, with two kids. Now you have two grandkids. So just such a beautiful guy you are. And we're honored that you're here making the time with us.
Thank you. You make me feel very, very special. And as well, likewise, Raju, I mean, since we met, we've been in touch. I've we have always made time for each other and good quality time, I would say.
Mm.
Each moment that we have spent together has been meaningful and in some way or the other
Mm.
been comforting. So I really am privileged.
Well, we appreciate you being here. So I'm going to have, maybe Trisha ask you the first question, and then we'll flow.
Ajay, thank you again for being here. And
Yeah.
at some point in this conversation, I will ask more questions about yours and Raju's friendship. But for now, let's begin with the title of our podcast is Bold Conscious Connections. And I'm curious to hear what the word bold means to you and why you believe it's important for business leaders, business owners like yourself to be bold in today's world.
I mean, the word bold is actually it's a differentiator for everybody. I mean, that is what differentiates you from the masses or from the many. And I think there is always a moment or a time when you have to take that bold decision in life for right or wrong. I mean, so given yourself the time and the moment to take the right path, which is the bold path. Because as spiritually also and in the book, the text, the easy way out is something that the mind always tells you to take. It's always the bold part, which if you look at tells you what to do. And that's what bold is. I would say that from starting as a small businessman, a trader in my business, I started off like many others. And then came a time when I had to take a decision, which was, you would term it as bold today. It
What
was 19.
happened? What
Yeah, tell
happened?
us, tell us.
Yeah,
Tell us the
it was,
story.
it wasn't. It started with the 1980. I took a bold step. I gave up all my business that I was running here, and a friend of mine called Anil Agarwal, who is today the chairman of Vedanta. I mean, the two of us decided while we were walking on the sea face, said, let's go to America. So, and I was quite comfortable in what I was doing, but I said, no, I must see America. Yes, sure. Let's both of us go.
Mm.
And with nylon socks and no over jacket and nothing, not well prepared at all for what winter is in New York. We landed up in January 1980,
Mm.
and that was a bold step. And but we followed our heart, and I stayed there for 5 years. I studied, I drove a taxi, I did everything that you could think of. What experience is. And subsequently in 19 after having been there for 5 years, I decided to take a call back to come back home. And I would say my journey of having taken that bold decision started from that day, because I just did what I felt like doing. And that is what really leads me to understand, even from being a simple worker, where we employ 3,000 people today, as to how to treat that person, how you feel when you interact with those people. And it matters because you've been there, you've known. I mean, there was a person who was rude to me in a taxi when I was driving a yellow cab in New York. And I stopped the car and asked him to leave. And he says, "No, I will not." And I said, "Well, we both will wait here. You'll miss your appointment."
Mm.
And I asked him to leave. So that was another bold decision where you stood by where people did not respect you, and you took a decision not because you were going to miss out on your tip or the trip money, and every dollar counted in those days.
Right.
But it's a decision you take when the time comes, and you just don't let it go and listen to the easy way out, which is your mind that you want a few dollars more. So these are bold decisions that comes your way. And I mean, I would say make it or break it points that you have in your life. And I remember in 1991, when I was still doing a small businesses, we had these riots in India where one of the temples were broken down, the Babri Masjid, and there was this Muslim Hindu riots were going on, and everybody ran away. All the workers ran away, and we had a factory in northern India. And the Japanese called me up and they said, "Anando-san, what should we do? I mean, how will we get our merchandise? You have to help us. We lose face." And I was a small businessman. I must have been doing $100,000, $200,000 worth of business. That's it, or maybe 500,000. I don't remember really, but not anything substantial. And I called all the workers who were willing to work. They were primarily Hindus because the Muslims ran away because of the riots. And then they said that the goods won't reach on time because of the delays that we took place. So I air freighted goods, almost $75,000 worth of goods I air freighted. I mean, in terms of freight cost, not the actual cost. And there was a bold decision because I wanted these people to live up to their face. And subsequently, the following year, they gave me all the Indian business that they did out of India. And I jumped from like a $500,000 business. I went up to maybe $8 million, $10 million.
Wow.
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 So these are the bold decisions and the correct decisions that you have to take with your conscience, which makes you follow what is right. And you cannot always, take a decision which is financially, profitable for you. There are things that you have to be human about. And I think, in my sense, that is what bold is. I mean, just to put you in my term and my understanding.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah. There are a few examples there that really illustrate for us conviction, the decision to just come to New York when you did. And it sounded like you didn't have all the information, but you did it anyway, because what is it? If there was one word you could think of that allows somebody to do that, to have conviction, what would that be?
Believe in yourself and believe in the inner, I would say the inner sense of spirituality from within, where you are a part of the bigger arrangement in this cosmos.
Mm.
That it is not only what you say. I mean, many people believe that it's me. The word in my dictionary, the we, it has to be. The I doesn't exist. I doesn't exist without the we. And whether you include we as another person, or we as, your belief in God, or you believe in the cosmos spirit, or whatever you may believe. But I think it's inclusive. I think unless you are inclusive and believing that you are part of the bigger arrangement in this world, I think it's difficult. I think it's marching onwards in life. It's difficult. It's not that easy. When I think leads to a lot of problems. I think the biggest problem of depression and other ailments that are today's diseases are because of the fact that it's I. I am not happy. I am not enjoying myself. I'm not content, I'm not happy. I mean, the word I is become too invert, indulgent. And I think that is the problem, I think.
I assume, therefore, you've had the experience of what it means to be I, and then you got to a we at some point in your life.
Yeah, I mean, you always think when you get, every time you attain a landmark in life, you think that you have arrived, until then you get a kick in the butt. And
Mm.
then you suddenly realize that I is nobody. It has to be somebody there out to support you. I mean, we could be family, could be friends, could
Yeah.
be spiritual guru, it could be anybody. But I think that we have to learn to be inclusive rather than being self-motivated and say I am doing this. I
Mm.
think that doesn't work, at least in my belief, in my this thing, it doesn't work.
That's great. We, Tricia and I, we came up with our own definition of bold, and of course, conviction, being decisive, and being ambitious. All those are part of that. But the other two that we believe are an integral part of being courageous and bold are heartfelt. That you come from the heart and you know what it means. And I think when you talk about the humanity and the fact that you were a worker and you understand what a worker goes through at the lowest level, so that's heartfelt. And then the second is being humble, because we think humility is also being bold, because if you're not humble and you think that you can just run it, as you were just talking about the I and the we, it's just like, it just resonates so much that it really, those are that we're on the
Yeah.
right track with what we think is bold. So
No, I mean, finally, what is success? I mean, that's what we have to evaluate. I mean,
mhm.
what is success? And each for himself, for its own definition, or its own, assumptions of what success is. But
So let's talk about that. What does success mean to you?
success, in my understanding, is that you are able to have given the opportunity to serve a larger purpose. And I think that is what success is. I find that my biggest success today is that we employ 3,000 people directly on our payroll, and we have another 3,000 people who work with us as contractors.
Mhm.
So I think that the success is the fact that you have been chosen to be a part of the bigger picture in this humanity
Mm.
and in God's creation, or, in this living environment that we are in. I think that is success. That it's that in COVID, for example, we had 4 months of no work, but we paid all our workers. We paid all our workers. Everybody got every bit of the salary. We deferred the salary by a few months,
Mm.
but as soon as we came back into operation, we paid back the reduction that we had done.
Mm.
And I think that is what one should be. I mean that is success for me. That you have been given the role to play a big picture. I mean, I agree when you compare a guy who's a person or an entrepreneur who's got 50,000, 100,000, but in your own way, you are doing what has been assigned to you, and probably that's been assigned to you because that's your capability. The cosmos has decided that giving you bigger responsibility than this, you'll collapse. So you accept it as that is what has been given to you, and you do it to your best ability.
Mhm. That's great.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Beautiful definition. One of the best, most clear definitions I've heard. And it's so in alignment with the idea that, being bold is being led from your heart. And when you are in tune with that, the idea of following your heart, answering the call, we often talk to our clients or listeners about the fact that what's in our heart isn't just something we chose. It chose us. And, what we create in the physical, what manifests in the physical is a result of that alignment between what's that blessing, what's that gift, what's that essence. And our readiness to really step into that fully. And when a leader like you steps into that ambition, right, follows your conviction, makes decisions. I love what you were saying before about you just make a decision and then you act on that. Then you see the results. And wow, what an example. Thank you for sharing what you've shared so far with us about your journey.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was reading uh, a book, a spiritual book, and it was very rightly said by one of the conversation between one of our gods called Ram and Vishishtu was a rishi, is like a saint, and yeah, so and he says, you inherit what you have done, and based on what you have done, you are exposed to certain circumstances. So certain rewards that you are with is because of what you did. And this is a conversation going on between God reincarnation, Ram, and his guru, because he's very depressed and he's come back and he's seen poverty and he's seen, despair around him. And so he's very perturbed about this whole thing. So he says, you are what you are because of what you did. But every given moment of time, the circumstances that you are now facing or the situation that you are in has a choice, which will determine what you are going to be. So you are given a moment or a situation because of what you did, and you will be rewarded with the result of what you do. So at any moment of time, you're always having choices to make. So whether you make your bold choices, easy choices, whether you make choices which are supposedly wrong or right, they are all yours. It's all got to do about you. It's got nobody else. Nobody else is responsible for that. And I think that we create those circumstances and we create our own fate. And this is where the definition of fate is not what you say, I'm a poor man, or I'm in despair, but you're creating that situation for yourself. And if you think positively and boldly and you take the steps which you should take from your heart, then you're creating that opportunity for tomorrow. And you will be rewarded. And this is the conversation, and I'm just repeating it in the context that you just asked me.
So over the course of the last however many years you've had your business, you've had to make plenty of choices, bold choices, maybe some not so bold. Can you talk to us about a time when things weren't looking so great, and what was the situation, and how did you use this knowledge, this spiritual connection that you have to bounce back from that? Because I think that'll be so useful for our listeners today who are experiencing a lot of setbacks, perhaps because of COVID and the new way that the world is functioning today. What advice can you give people when they're facing what seems like the worst obstacle ever, and how they could bounce back from that?
So in 2007, as recent as that, we bought the third largest floor covering company in Germany. And we thought that was the greatest thing that our company, and it had outlets in, it had a factory manufacturing in Hungary, and we bought another, I would say, the businesses in a company like England, and we were rocking. I mean, we were going heads on, and then lo behold, 2009 came, and there was a meltdown, and everybody went in a tailspin. And our Indian operation had guaranteed the acquisition that we had done in Germany. So as things would stand, that by 2012 or 13, the liabilities was so huge. and we had, also a foreign currency loan that we had in our company. So all accumulated together worked out to about $25 million. We were sunk, and a company like ours could not afford to be in that kind of a situation. And this liability came. So spoke to a lot of friends of mine and people who are wealthy and business successful. And they said the best thing is to put your shoes up and just accept that this is a situation. File for bankruptcy, take out as much as you can from the company and you know, let it go. It was my belief that we never did anything wrong. It was a circumstantial problem that our company in India was doing fine, although the liability was huge and we guaranteed it from India. So for 5 years, I would say, I took a decision in those 5 years that I would work very hard, diligently. I did not out of my office or my workplace. And we worked, all of us together, how to bring this company back. And and we filed for bankruptcy protection. And 5 years later, we came out of bankruptcy. Today, our company is debt-free, and we are 4 times larger than we have ever been in terms of our revenue and profit.
Awesome.
So it was all a question about believing that you did not do wrong and you did not want to do wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And you had belief in what you were doing was correct and you did it the correct way. So I would say that if you have not done wrong or you have not done anything suspicious in what your business is, have faith in it. Go and fight it. You'll come out a winner because you know your business better than anybody else. No advice is as better than your heart advice.
That's awesome.
Powerful words.
Now I know that you're sharing some details, but your company was public, right? So it is public still.
Yes, it's a listed company.
None of this is something you shouldn't be talking about. So I just want to be sure you're.
Everybody knows. All my bankers know. No banker was talking to me, and everybody who spoke to me, anybody who wanted to lend me money was charging me, 50% higher than the base rate over here, and 60% higher. But we knew that we were not doing anything wrong, and I think today we are one of the most competitive companies in our field of work today.
And I was with you a couple of those years in the.
Yes, I told you that. Yeah. We went through tough times, but what are tough times? As long as I think that you got to believe in yourself. You just have to believe in yourself. And if you surround yourself with people of wisdom and people of well-meaning people and not materialistically desirable people, who will hound you, I think you will get that awakening. It's very important to choose people who you surround yourself with.
That's it. Another big point. Wow. So, this is a good segue to now use the other word, conscious. I know you are very conscious in who you are and very, very aware of all the spirit, that you're a spirit first in this human body for however long we're all here. So what are your practices for yourself to be more conscious that you are able to share, so you just being rather than always in action, always doing?
So I take, for first, I changed my food habit. I used to eat, anything and everything. And I turned a vegetarian because I really felt that, I keep reading that all spiritual gurus and in the olden days, they ate, foods that were calming to the mind and the body. So I changed my food habit. I changed my living habits also, where I work and I take time off for myself. I spend a lot of time anytime the families want to take a holiday, no matter what it is. I just say that you all make the schedule and I'll find the time. So there is never a moment that I would say that I'm too busy. I'm sorry. Oh God, what happened here? Um, Something happened.
No, at your end, we're still the same.
Yeah. Suddenly that screen, you guys disappeared here.
We might just be in
Oh,
another
yeah,
window.
I got you back. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, so I don't think that anything is that important that it needs to be over, I would say, attached to nothing, neither work or neither my activities that I do. I find success is that if your children are a reflection of you and they are loving and good people, I think that's a good reflection, and I think that is success. Your workplace is a pleasure to go to when your people around you are, respectful and are honest and righteous. I think that's success. Walk of life generally. My brothers and sisters and all work in the company, and we all get along. It's been 20 years, 30 years. By now, most people are fighting with each other and have lived in harmony. So I think that is success. I think but finally, it all comes down to oneself. You get what you give. It's a saying that is age old, and it's true. You actually get what you give.
Mm.
You've shared so many great leadership lessons with us so far, and it's only been, 30 minutes. So much value here. Thank you.
Yeah.
What I'm curious, I'm sure Raju, what we're curious is, what would you say out of everything you've shared, and maybe you haven't shared it yet, what's been your greatest leadership lesson that you've learned so far? And we'd love to hear it in the context of a story, because I think stories are so, it doesn't, not everybody can relate to some of these ideas and concepts. However, in the form of a story, we can all tap into something within us that allows us to connect with each other. And we'd love to hear what over the course of these last many decades, what your greatest leadership lesson has been.
I think the number one attribute, or I would say um, a character build for yourself, or um, is that one should learn to listen. People don't listen, whether it's your heart or other people around you. And I think that if you listen, because I'm not a textile person, I'm in the textile business, and we are in home textile and we are in auto textile. And auto textile is a technical textile, which is very, very severe. And because the fact that in the car industry, there is zero tolerance for failure. You cannot have a brake working 99% or 99.5%. It has to be 100 on 100. So every part that is in the manufacturing of car industry has to be 100%, right? So I think the most important thing that we all must try and do is to be humble enough to always think that you know very little and others know more than you. Be humble. Like rightly said, when you speak, it is already what you know. It's when you keep quiet that you listen to what you don't know. So in many cases, I've noticed that people want to talk a lot, and express how much they know. But in most cases, I've seen that people who talk a lot know very little.
That's so true.
but you listen because, out of respect or whatever it is, you just listen. And to be able to be in an environment to listen, coming back to what I said earlier, you must surround yourself with people who are leaders in what they do, whether it's business, whether it's spirituality, whether it's charity, or whatever it may be, whatever they are doing. If you surround yourself with that and you learn to listen, I think you will find your answer, because it's somewhere down the line, you will be told what you're seeking in some form or the other. The voice will come to you in maybe your own inner realization, or somebody will tell you what you're seeking.
Mhm.
It's an amazing thing that happens all the time.
Can you speak to the distinction between having conviction and following your beliefs, and then practicing humility and knowing when to pull back and listen? Because I think that these are concepts, again, that people, oh yeah, well, okay, I can be more, have more conviction with my beliefs, but then, someone who's starting out might not have the nuance, right? There is a nuance. What can you say about that?
First of all, you must be humble enough to say, I don't know. Most people are I would say, afraid to accept that they don't know. I have found this as a big problem with a lot of people, that they don't confess to that, I don't know. I mean, can you please tell me, or can you first teach me? And convictions can only come with, I would say, with trying something, failing, and then trying again and making it finally a success. When you have failed and you have overcome it, that leads to conviction.
Yeah. So well said.
And belief is what your heart tells you. Your heart tells you that what you should believe in. But you are convinced about whatever you are doing is when you have tried it, failed, and you didn't do it correctly, so you try it again. And I think in my assessment, that's the difference between belief and conviction, I think.
It was a great explanation. And I feel like a little kid in a candy store right now, because I got more questions.
Well, I have a question. Go ahead. You ask.
Go ahead. You ask. I want to ask a question about the belief later on, but go ahead.
Well, so maybe it'll come out in the question I'm about to ask, which is, having known you for 20 plus years, Ajay, I know that, and we believe that, any business is an honorable pursuit, right? Because when someone is bold enough to come up with serving others, creating a product, a service in from the highest self, despite the problems in India where you manufacture, and there's all sorts of corruption, all the other things you go through.
Yeah.
So leave that aside, but maybe you can talk about that at some point. You have to still, as you say, you're true to yourself. When did you at some point recognize that this is a spiritual pursuit? Because ultimately you're here to serve, right? To create a product or service for others. And not only are you helping employees and other families, their families, the contractors' families. So you're really creating a ripple effect. But at what point, or was it always there that you always knew that this was a spiritual journey for you? At what point did you then also add spirituality to your practices?
I think, Raju, to be convinced in what my role is has been an awakening in recent years. I can't really put it here, but it's been a gradual build up to recent years. That the self-realization that, it's important to be successful. It's very important in whatever you do, you excel in what you do. And you must be a winner. Even in when wars took place, in religious wars took place, our God Krishna has always said that the righteous people must win. So you must come out a winner. but in a righteous way, not on a devious or a, irresponsible way, which I say. Over the years, in the last few years, as I've become, older, and I've seen the younger generation come up. My daughter's 35, my son is about 27. There's one thing that I feel that I must at all times be an example to them is, what is it that I can leave most to them or for them in time to come. And I honestly believe that it's not money. That's my conviction now. I mean, we have a comfortable life. We live, in a decent manner. But the priority of being a company or a person which follows the right path. I'll give you an example. As early as last week, we were bidding on a $2 million project, which is using some special yarns. And we had a target to meet, and we were unable to meet the target. So a suggestion came, sir, that we could use a substitute yarn instead of using this yarn. Nobody will know the difference, and we can meet the price target. Now, this is a dilemma, because you can meet the target, nobody will know, and you can get the business. So the choice had to be made. So the choice that was made by our company was that we will inform the customer that this is the purchase price of our raw material. Unfortunately, we can't meet your price because the raw material works up to 85%. So there is no way that we can meet your price target. And this is what it is. So, and we happily decided in our mind that we had lost the business. Today, we got a reply saying that we accept your price.
The power of?
The power of self-conviction, that is success. Because you took the right path and you were willing to give it up for a larger cause of conscience. And your children are listening to you, your people are listening to you, they know which route you're following. So it's not money always that you would put into connotation of being correct. Money is not always correct. Just because you made more money doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you are correct. It's just that it just means you have more money. That's it.
I got goosebumps listening to that story.
That's such a great example of a topic Raju and I just spoke about the other day, is integrity. Integrity really being about you doing what you believe, even when no one is looking or you think no one can see you. And I love how you said your children sees you, your coworkers, your company, the people who work for you sees you. And so that's how cultures are created, right? In business, if you are fortunate enough like you, where you have thousands of people, you're creating cultures. And it's those types of decisions, moment to moment, that create the culture and create thereby the result that you've been able to enjoy. Beautiful.
You kind of partially answered the question I was going to ask later on, but here it is. So what's your current path and what's the legacy you're trying to leave? I think you've kind of touched on that the legacy you want to leave is your example, your role model for your kids, because we all know that it's not just the money that's going to be on the eulogy they're going to write about you.
Yeah, I think so, Raju. I mean, I honestly think that if you live right, things fall in place. I mean, finally they do fall in place. Right is always right. I mean, if you ask your heart, right is always right. It's your mind that tells you it is wrong, or gives you an excuse why you don't have to be right at this moment. and you can be right later. It's the mind that tells you, but your heart never tells you that.
Yeah.
So if you practice and if you contemplate and if you meditate on yourself from your inner heart, it'll tell you to be, it'll show you what is correct. It'll always tell you what is correct.
Mhm.
I mean, all our religious gurus and in the past and the rishis all understood this. They just closed their eyes and they went into meditative states because they were always wanting to listen to their inner self. And it's like there's another story that I just read, and it says, there was a king called Janak. He was a very wise, a very uh, righteous king, and he was the father of God Ram. So he was awake, and he was the king, and he was always doing the best, and he was a very enlightened person. And then one night, he when he was sleeping, he saw himself as a person in distress, and he was begging for food. And I'm just cutting it short. And he was really in distress, and he was begging for food and somebody to give him few alms. And here was a man who was a very rich king. He was ruling India, and in his dream he was the poorest of poorest person. And then he gets up, and then he decides, what is real? Was my sleeping the real, or when I was awake the real?
Hmm.
What is real? So this is the question that we ask ourselves again and again. What is real? We think, because we have been conditioned to think that money is real, the wealth accumulation is real, and the rest is less important, is that we psych ourselves to that. But it could be that this is unreal, and then when you're sleeping is what the real self is.
Hmm.
Because when you're thirsty in your dreams, the water jug next to you cannot quench your thirst. You need that jug of water in your dream coming to you. That will quench your thirst. The water next to you won't. So what is real and what is unreal? So it's this conditioning that we have all fallen victim to, that accumulation of wealth, is, I think, one of the biggest curse of today's time.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, that right there, we could end it right there.
I'm trying to tell you stories because you said to tell you things in stories because people will listen to it or understand.
Well, I mean, stories are the way you learn. We learn. It's like, oh, that resonates because that's what happened to that person or me or that one. So it's really, really powerful.
Yeah. Oh, good. Anyway, anyway, it's wonderful talking to both of you. Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
listen, I know it's late over there, but we just
No,
have
no,
to.
I'm fine. I mean, I just don't want to keep you guys from your next
oh
whatever.
no. I mean, we've learned so much in this brief conversation. I know I just met you today, but it feels like kindred spirits as well. And
I
that's
wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for the persistence of Raju, by the way, because it was Raju.
I wouldn't be here either if it wasn't for his persistence.
I thought he will follow up on my while in the middle of my sleeping. But are you going to be there? Are you going to be on? I told everybody I have to be there. I was 8:30 sharp. I have to be. If it's 8:31, Raju will cut me short.
Well, I can relate to your story about when you decided to come to New York and you knew nothing about it, because that's how this whole thing started. Was, one day Raju just called me up and was like, "Do you want to go to India?" And I said, "Yeah, sure."
And I had to like swallow a big lump. I go, she said she's going to India. I said, do you know what I'm talking about? She goes, no. I said, why would you go to India with me? She goes, because you asked me. Like, but I don't even know what I'm going to do. Well, that's how it began. But it was just one of those things. I woke up from a dream of something, and I had all this thing that we could begin this in a place where we could try out our workshops perhaps in India, since I know people there and all that. And then I had a job to do, because now I got to really deliver this, right? Because I said yes. She said yes. And we then pursued whatever we pursued. And yeah, it wouldn't have happened. It was an intuition, just one of those things that, hey, it could have been any other person, but I, talked to her, and then it sort of.
Yeah.
So he listened to his heart, I listened to mine, and here we are.
Yeah, wonderful. It's my privilege. I'm happy.
Listen, now I always learn a lot from you. I never feel like every time I talk to you, it's like we're learning so many things about life. It's always about learning more about ourselves and about our lives. So I know that our audience and we don't take anything for granted. So we really appreciate your presence. Yeah. But before you go, what discoveries might you had in this conversation with us?
Well, I really didn't think that I would be on a platform where I would be expressing my heartfelt understanding, which may go out to a larger audience. And if it really helps through your podcast to make a difference in people, and I'm so happy that I could, be a part of that. I mean, I could assist in that. And anything that I can ever do for you both, Raju, I'll be more than happy. You know that.
Well, I know that in your heart, and I know that in my heart. So, but it's not about pushing or anybody. We're just simply saying that I know you have so much to share and give to the world, that even if our audience is whatever the audience size is, we keep growing. Of course, we just launched this 4 or 5 weeks ago. So we're also delighted to see that, more and more people and our clients are listening and watching. And it's, in whatever little way we can, oil the wheel, so to speak, become cogs to create more unity consciousness. That's the purpose of this podcast anyway, to raise the awareness and know that we're all interconnected, right? In ways that.
Yeah, I mean, it all works in a humble way when starting things small, and before you know anything, it it's like that pebble that rolls down the mountain. It carries on and becomes a huge snowball finally. Yeah. I am sure with your message and the right intentions, you guys should soon be a snowball. I'm sure.
It's already there.
Yeah. One moment at a time, Ajay, one moment at a time.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows. It's so funny, Shirt. Nobody really knows what lies next. I mean, this is one thing that I always wonder, why people are so fearful. And in my mind, the fear is the uncertain tomorrow. Yeah, it's not what you see, it's what you think you will see. And the reality is that nobody knows that tomorrow. So why do people get so fearful? Is it something that is a mystery to me till today? I've asked many people that, why are you so fearful? Just live it. There is a providence, there is times it'll come to your rescue, but believe in yourself, but don't be fearful. Fear is the worst kind of blockage that you can have as a human being. We have been gifted, with this heart of contentment from within, and the belief that there is a higher truth. So there is actually no reason to fear. And I really hope that this whole new movement of people, the youth and the so-called new generation, they become so fearful, and that fear makes them do the wrong things. It doesn't give them the opportunity to think right. And really, when you think about it, that you don't know tomorrow. Nobody knows tomorrow. I don't think even God knows what is tomorrow, because he'll decide tomorrow what is tomorrow, right? So why you worry about it? Let it happen. I think fear is one thing that we should all eliminate.
Well, we
And
talk a lot about fear, so maybe that's a topic for our next podcast with you.
yeah, okay.
Sounds like a great idea. Yes, yes,
We'll delve right into it at a deeper level.
yes. That's definitely a conversation, a deeper conversation we could take.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful soul, your beautiful self
Thank you.
with
Thank
us
you, yeah.
and our listeners.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Ajay.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Your lights needs to be spread. I think it's spread a lot, but we want to help that as well.
Thank you very much.
Take care, buddy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Namaste.
Good night.
Namaste.